Alright, viewers, you're back with me, William Xu, and we still have Mr. Rodney Ludema, the Chief Economist of U.S. State Department. And we're going to talk about the global economy projection in 2015. Alright, Mr. Ludema, with many challenges of economy this year, how do you think the outlook for next year for global economy?
Well, my office doesn't do forecasting, so I don't have a, significantly better estimates than anybody else. But I think that my reading of the data and my reading of the existing projections from the IMF and other organizations suggest that global growth is likely to pick up in 2015. And I think that's predicated to some extent on the European situation. We're hoping that Europe will take aggressive action to promote the economy and get it back on track. And I think I think that in Japan, I'm actually quite hopeful on Abenomics. They had a bit of I think they're going to have a bit of a slowdown this year, in part because they enacted a tax increase.
True.
And there's still I think a lot of uncertainty right now in Japan about whether that's a temporary or more long-term.
What about the emerging markets like Indonesia, for instance, and other emerging markets like India?
Yeah. So, I think that as the world economy goes, that's how Indonesia is going to go as well. I do think that, as I said earlier, the commodity boom is over, and so on the supply side, there needs to be some response on the part of Indonesia to move into some other sectors. But I think that the government economists I talked to here in Indonesia are projecting that growth will be back up. I think we're somewhere around 5 right now, and we'll be back up to 6 by next year. And I know that the incoming president has a ambitious goal to get back to 7% growth. And
amen to that.
Yeah, we'd all be happy to see that.
We'd all be happy to see that. All right, let's talk about the Fed. As you know, the Fed does play a big role in the global economy.
Sure.
For us, like emerging countries, the Fed rate adjustment will definitely affect the rate of other countries. What's your say about the rate?
Well, I think that it's no secret that the Federal Reserve, because of the strength of the U.S. economy, is winding down its monetary expansion and may, in fact, increase interest rates in the coming year.
True.
I think that's what markets are expecting. But I would also point out that, if the U.S. when the U.S. reduces or when the U.S. pulls back on its monetary reins, it's because the U.S. economy is healthy and growing, and so it's always a mixed picture. Yes, reducing the quantitative easing or you're pulling back from the quantitative easing can create some disruptions in financial markets, but at the same time, having it is a symptom of a strong U.S. economy, and the strong U.S. economy is absolutely good for Indonesia.
All right, what should be prepared by emerging countries for a Fed rate adjustment to stop the negative impact?
Yeah.
Possibly.
Well, I think that the Central Bank of Indonesia has done an admirable job.
Admirable job.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the banking sector here appears to be quite sound. Rates have gone up. I mean, I know that's that is partly responsible for the slowdown in growth this year, but it puts the Indonesia economy on a sounder basis for weathering whatever storm. We don't think it's a storm actually, but weathering this transition to this normalization, if you will, of U.S. monetary policy. So I think that they are doing the right things in response to the external situation.
Okay, let's jump into China. Do you agree that China is slowing down in general?
Yes.
And what's the cause? What's the possible cause in that? And what's the impact to the global economy in general?
Well, I think the Chinese economy. I think part of it is the Chinese economy has been running on exports and investment for a long time, and it's not a sustainable growth model. You can't have China. China's not going to grow at 6, 7, 8% perpetually. If its major export markets are growing at 2%, right? Now it's managed to do this in the past because it had a very large, surplus of labor that it brought from the countryside into the cities and engaged in manufacturing and exported the outcome. Well, that surplus labor pool is beginning to dry up, and so I think that what China needs to also rethink its growth model for the long term. It needs to become an economy that is much more reliant on domestic demand, but that also means that and I think they're moving in that direction. I think that there's some good signs in the Chinese economy in that regard, but I think that for the long term is the only way that China is going to continue to grow at the rate that it's been accustomed to.
All right. Lastly, before we close our dialogue, a shocking trend is seen coming from India because they seem to have the advantage of an English-speaking country. What's your say about their growth?
Well, they have a new president as well. He's also getting the benefit of the doubt of the markets. I think that signs are good that he's going to. I think that India is also an emerging market that's somewhat vulnerable to international shocks. But I think they're in a similar situation to Indonesia in that they have prepared themselves. Their banking system again seems to be doing okay, and their debt isn't too large, and so I think they're going to be affected by the reduction of quantitative easing, but I think their growth prospects in the long run are good. Interesting, you mentioned the fact that they speak English.
They speak English.
Just before coming here, I visited the Philippines.
What about it?
Well, the Philippines is also an English-speaking country, and they're actually experiencing an amazing growth in business services, and so they seem to have been taking a lot of business away from the Indians in that regard, and they're very gung-ho about that growth. So I guess
it's good to see the neighboring countries.
Yeah, so there's
like
a little
Philippines.
Competition for the Indians
exactly.
on business services.
All right, thanks for your view, Mr. Rodney Ludema, Chief Economist of U.S. State Department.
Thank you for having me.
Hope to see you again next time in
Okay.
the talk show, all right? All right, viewers, that was our discussion with Mr. Rodney D. Ludema, the Chief Economist of U.S. State Department. Now, coming back